Hello and welcome back to Trashbook Toy Reviews, where once a week we take a look at one of the items in my collection, ranging from the cute and cuddly to the deliciously monstrous. This week we are taking a closer look at the recently released N.E.S.T Bonecrusher. So let's talk a little bit about the character of Bonecrusher, as he's appeared in the Transformers franchise over the years. He's typically depicted as a Constructicon and a member of the team that makes Devastator. Up until the Bayformers movies, he has been depicted in this way. For the Bayformers movies, he of course got his redesign into the Buffalo Anti-Mine truck, which is super cool because it has that weird little graspy claw on it that they incorporated into the design. He's always had this mean kind of vibe to him, and they definitely retained that with the live-action films. Bonecrusher has been a Decepticon for the entirety of his appearances, and even this one, though he does bear the Autobot insignia, definitely seems to be a little bit more of the robots in disguise kind of thing. Anyways though, let's talk a little bit about the figure before us. So for those coming back to my channel, or those new here, I take a look at figures from 3 core categories for review. We take a look first at the sculpt and detail, then we jump into the color and paint applications, and finally wrap up with the articulation or pose. Normally we would take a look at the accessories as well, but in this guy's case he only comes with his backdrop, so we will take a quick look at that, but it is very unlikely to affect our score at all. Anyways, right into the first category here with the sculpt and detail. So just starting here with the sculpt and detail on the robot mode for Bonecrusher, you can see that it is just absolutely immaculate detail on every aspect of him. You do have a little bit more kibble than you normally had, but even just looking here at the back, they really blended in pretty seamlessly so that all you really have hanging off the back is the claw. I really like how they did this guy. You can see his feet look accurate to how they did in the movie, with those little skates and the toes coming down here. You have the arms, they look great. You do have a little bit of kibble hanging off here with like the window bit here on the arm and all, but everything looks really good, and you can see going down his arms, he's got plenty of robotic detail in there, going over to his chest. Again, it all looks like just naturally pieces of the vehicle mode that kind of collapse into itself to form the robot, and his head of course looks great. Seeing as this is one of my favorite characters from the movie, unfortunately with only 2-3 seconds of screen time, poor guy. He is just one of the coolest designs that they incorporate into the Bayformers movies. He's always going to be a personal favorite of mine. But just looking here at the sculpt and detail on the Studio Series figure, of course this is the N.E.S.T version, so the colors aren't necessarily accurate, but that aside, he looks pretty spot on for how he did in the movie. Obviously there's a couple liberties that they had to take to incorporate into this figure, but everything just looks fantastic. It all looks natural and just gives him this big, mean appearance. None of it looks too toy-y for me, anything like that. This guy's definitely taking home a 5 in terms of the sculpt. So as far as color and paint application, this is obviously not the version that we saw on screen, so I am kind of just judging it based on this independent toy. Everything about the color and paint application looks good. It's obviously, again, not accurate to the movie, but that aside, the dark gray looks really good for Bonecrusher. I really like him in his normal, like, military tan color that he has, but this is super cool. If we saw this on screen, I wouldn't have any negative opinions about it. I would have been perfectly fine with it. But the most I can say as far as paint applications where I have any kind of complaints is probably just the claws on the hand. I wish that they emphasized the detail on them a little bit more, made them look more independent, but that is me just nitpicking. Going down here from the head, you can see these beautiful silver paint applications all over the skull here. He's even got those beautiful red eyes. One of his eyes looks like it's pretty messed up, probably from when he got punched in the face. And then you can see again this nice window detail. Going down here, even the different colored plastics on here just help break up the sculpt a little bit more and look more, again, robotic and natural to this character. You've got silver highlights again here on the knees that just emphasize the different features of the robot. It's really well done. I'm going to give it a 4. The only reason is that, again, this big chunk of the dark gray plastic, I feel like it could be broken up a little bit more with colors. It is all kind of the same thing. But I don't want to knock it too much because it doesn't look unnatural by any means. This figure looks really good, and I really have to emphasize that you're not going to be unhappy with the paint application. It is very unique to this particular toy. It's not realistic to the movie at all, but that aside, it is very well done, and I'm very happy with it. It's a really cool take on the character. Now in terms of articulation, this is probably going to be my harshest category, and that's really saying something because I don't dislike it by any means. But you can see here, the head doesn't have a lot of motion. You can turn it little bit, You might be able to get a 360 if you really try, though I'm not going to because the design of the head, I'm really worried it's going to damage it. And then he gets just a little bit of side to side, so the head really doesn't have much action. You can't move it up or down at all. Don't buy this figure expecting to be able to make him look everywhere. He's really very static. He can move a little bit side to side, but as far as posing, you kind of have to play into that. When it comes to the arms though, he has this nice butterfly joint here at the connection to the body, and that's just everything to do with the transformation, but it plays into the articulation very well. You have this nice double hinge joint here and a swivel, making this almost like a pseudo ball joint. Because of the design of the figure sculpt, you do have to be a little careful or it's going to be grinding up against plastic bits. But again, it adds a lot of flexibility to the sculpt itself. The elbows have a swivel and a hinge. And then the hands are the only weak point for me. I really love that you can pose the hands independently, make him grab things, make him grapple and touch the ground and everything. But the design of the arms, because there's no wrist pivot, wrist hinge, wrist swivel, nothing like that, you are stuck with his hands in this very kind of awkward pose where you can get him in this intimidating like grasping pose, but like you have to move the whole arm to get him to face down or anything like that. That's a little awkward. Moving down here to the waist, he of course has no swivel at the waist. There's no way they'd be able to incorporate that into the articulation with the transformation, but the legs here at the hip have nice motion with a swivel and a hinge. We got another swivel right here, making it so that his legs have quite a wide range of motion. And then with the skates, now when I got this figure, I figured with the skates that would be the hardest part to pose, but that is not the case. All of the toes here move semi-independently, and again, it's all thanks to the transformation, but it does lend itself to, again, adding a massive amount of articulation that you can use with these legs, so that the fact that he's on the skates really never hampers the ability to pose him and get him into cool stances. I'm sure there are some where he's going to do a little bit of sliding, but just the way that the toes are set up lend themselves to adding extra support almost no matter where you put it. I really like this because it lets you get Bonecrusher into some incredible poses with honestly minimal effort. It's really the arms that are the trickiest part of this whole design. The final point of articulation, of course, is going to be his grabby claw. So you can see it's got all kinds of hinges and swivels on this thing. I'm not going to go through each and every one, but just showing you a little bit about it. You can swivel it up and then of course swing the claws around and do all kinds of cool things with this. I absolutely love this feature about Bonecrusher, aside from him just having like one of the coolest designs in my opinion period of any of the Transformers from the Bayverse movies. He of course has a little grabby claw. Like why not? Why not just have this really cool feature of his own? So I love this. I love the fact that you can kind of store it on his back in multiple ways too, to add some little spiky bits coming off his back. You can hide it completely if you really want to. There really are no limits to what you can do with this thing, and it's just such a unique, interesting, like, fun piece to play with and look at. Everything about this feature is so cool. So as far as articulation, I'm going to give him a 4, surprisingly. I really want to do a 3, but this claw, just the amount of motion that you can get out of it, is just what you would want for this feature on the figure. So again, we're going to go with a 4 for this category. Now, one last thing that I do want to mention, this is across the vehicle mode and the robot mode. You'll notice in my video, a lot of the limbs aren't actually that fiddly, and I will just say that this is because I did do a really quick modification, just adding some clear nail polish across most of the joints to stiffen them up. It's very important to me that figures can hold poses and all that, so them fiddling around like that was not gonna work. But just so you know, this figure was very fiddly coming out of the box, and I am going to dock him 1 point for that particularly, because I know not everybody is comfortable doing these modifications, and I think it's, again, important that figures are playable right out of the box without you having to mod them at all. Now, getting into the accessories really quick, again, as discussed before, he doesn't come with any weapons, nothing crazy like that, even though in the Revenge of the Fallen movie you do see him use a blaster. That would have been cool to incorporate, but instead we get this really gorgeous backdrop of the highway where he pulled Optimus off the side and they got into their little tussle, again for like 5 seconds, unfortunately for me. But you can see it's part of the buzzworthy Bumblebee line, so it has this nice yellow color. It stands out a little bit more on your shelf than some of the other backdrops. I really like it. It's just like any of the other Studio Series figures. I really like that they incorporate these, but you know, for me, I can honestly half the time just take it or leave it. It's great for the shots like this for the reviews, but other than that, I don't really use these. And now finally, before we transform this little guy, here are some size comparisons for some of the first movie characters. We'll start here with Barricade, Starscream, Megatron. For the Autobots, here is Optimus Prime, Ironhide, And finally, just for a random one, here he is compared to the Rise of the Beasts RC. And you can see he scales up pretty accurately to all of the other Transformers. RC is the only one that he's off scale with, but again, she is not exactly in scale anyway, so whatever. And now, it's time to transform. Alright, and there you have it. He is all transformed up into vehicle mode, and as you can tell from the video, he is a little fiddly. Really watch closely if you want to make sure you get everything lined up right, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is a little annoying of a transformation. Once you have him transformed up, he looks great in his vehicle mode. You barely get any of the robot kibble. Very happy with how this guy came out. Just again, be very mindful while you're transforming him. There are a lot of little bits that need to click into place in all the right spots, and it can be a little annoying until you get the swing of it. So just to shotgun a quick vehicle mode review, I'm not going to dock or add any points for this, but the vehicle mode looks gorgeous. It looks identical to the Buffalo anti-mine vehicle. Of course, this is in the dark gray, which you typically see it more in the military olive or tan colors, but it looks perfect to the actual vehicle. As far as the color and paint applications, again, looks great on the vehicle. I'm not going to add or remove any points. You have this Autobot insignia, and then hidden here on the side, All Hail Megatron and his Decepticon symbol. I love that. It's such a cute little addition. It adds more to that robots in disguise feeling. As far as the articulation on here, of course, it's just a standard vehicle, but I love that you can use the Mind Claw on here. You can actually move it around, hose it, and yeah, if you have some toy cars, you can throw them around. It's pretty strong once you stiffen it up. Again, that is a special mod that I did, but it's really not a difficult one. You can find a lot of tutorials here on YouTube, and I've been thinking about making one just for those collecting Transformers toys that, again, do want to do this slight change that adds all that extra life to your figure. So for vehicle mode, not adding or deducting any points, but you can see it is great looking. So to wrap up the final score, Bonecrusher is taking home a 5, a 4, and a 4, and taking home a -1 for his fiddliness straight out of the box. So Bonecrusher is going to leave with a final score of 4, which is fantastic. This is not a perfect figure, but it is very close. If they just tightened up the joints a little bit, they just did that little extra mile as far as the articulation on the hands and things like that, I really think this would have been one of the best studio figures of all time. For me personally, this is one of my favorite figures in my collection, probably my favorite Transformers figure that I own. It is just such a cool design, such a cool figure. There's so much you can do with it, and I highly recommend picking this guy up if you were a fan of the first movie, if you were a fan of Bonecrusher, if you just like cool robots, honestly. So that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this review of the Studio Series NEST Bonecrusher. This was an awesome figure. I'm so happy I got to take a look at it. Let me know in the comments below what you thought, if you agree with my final review of this figure, if you liked or didn't like this figure. In addition, subscribe to my channel if you like my content. I do reviews like this once a week. I cover topics from Transformers to Godzilla to dinosaurs and everything crazy in between. Let me know in a comment down below if there's anything in particular you'd like me to take a look at. I'm always happy to take a look at what's either in my collection or try to pick something new up. Follow me on Instagram if you're interested in some more toy content. I am trying out TikTok, so check me out there as well. It's a Trashbug Toys over on Instagram and on TikTok. Let me know what you think. I'm very new to TikTok. This is my first foray into it, so I hope you guys enjoy the content, but I'm having a lot of fun making it, so I'm not stopping anytime soon, but just kind of want to know what you guys are looking for. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Next time we're going to be taking a look at the Bandai Gigan Rex. We'll see you then.